What if the family you believed you knew, the one you invited into your living room week in and week out, was not what it appeared to be at all? What if the upbeat smiles, the vows of reconciliation, and the gospel of hope were concealing something much more sinister? That's what took place when Meri Brown entered court, holding a folder that would turn the entire world of sister wives on its head. That wasn't mere family drama. That wasn't an argument or a breakup taped for cameras. No, this was about deception, betrayal, and a breadcrumb trail of secret files no one thought would ever come to light. Sister Wives fans are aware that the Brown family drama has long been complicated. Kody having multiple wives, Robyn becoming the favorite, and Meri being repeatedly relegated. But this wasn't Sister Wives anymore. This was real life. Sworn testimony, before a judge. And for once, the cameras were off. The courtroom was quiet, heavy, with the type of tension that you could cut with a knife. The judge pushed his glasses up his nose. Kody leaned back in his chair in his usual superior manner. Robyn whispered to her attorney, her voice quivering, her face white, and then all eyes were on Meri. She stood firm, clutching the folder, and with a calm but authoritative voice, delivered the words which made the chills run through the whole courtroom. Your Honor, the truth has been concealed for years. But today you will see it with your own eyes. That was it. The one moment that turned whispers into gasps. The moment that took away the tinsel TV veneer. Because when Meri opened that folder, the Brown family's worst-kept secrets were going to spill into the daylight. Among the papers in the folder were piles of paperwork, bank statements, property deeds, and financial records. They appeared like any other documents to an untutored glance. But to Meri and eventually to the judge, they revealed a much different tale. As per the documents, Robyn had secretly created various accounts years ago. Accounts that quietly siphoned off family funds away from the other wives. Funds that were meant to help feed all the Brown children, all the homes, had been diverted. The records created a chilling portrait, down payments on Robyn's mansion, high-end spending, even investments in her name. All while Christine and Janelle openly acknowledged on the show that they were broke. But the biggest surprise? Kody wasn't only aware, he was in on it. His own signature appeared on a number of transfers, confirming he had assisted Robyn in setting up the whole scam. The courtroom hummed. This was not special treatment or unfair love. This was financial deceit. The courtroom lights were harsh, almost blinding, and the atmosphere was thick with quiet. Everyone was in anticipation of the first move. Meri sat in the witness chair, her hands placed on the folder that was already the focal point. It was not thick, perhaps half an inch at most. But what it carried in its pages was incalculable. For so long, Meri had been the quiet one, the wife who disappeared into the shadows as the family drama unfolded on television. Fans had grown accustomed to seeing her alone, neglected, even ignored at times. But here, in this instant, Meri wasn't invisible. She was the focal point of the hurricane. The judge cleared his throat. Mrs. Brown, you may proceed. Meri did not answer immediately. She slowly released the clasp of the folder instead. The room leaned in, reporters, onlookers, even the bailiffs standing by the door. Kody folded his arms, attempting to appear nonchalant, but his foot tapped anxiously beneath the table. Robyn muttered something under her breath to her attorney, her eyes jumping between Meri and the judge. It was a bank statement, ordinary at first glance. But the highlighted lines told a different story. Transfers, large sums, withdrawals at odd hours. Accounts under Robyn's name that none of the other wives had ever been told about. Meri's voice was steady but sharp as she explained. Year after year, funds from our joint family account were being transferred into accounts that only Robyn controlled. None of us, Christine, Janelle, and I, were ever provided access to these accounts. When we asked where the money was being spent, we were informed that it was for family needs. But these documents tell a different story. She put the document on the judge's bench. The courtroom murmured. The following report was even more incriminating. Deeds to property, land and homes bought in Robyn's name, paid for by cash withdrawals from accounts that rightfully belonged to all four wives equally. Meri stared straight at the judge. Your Honor, while Christine was scrambling to pay for her daughter's medical bills, while Janelle was fretting about food, while I was scraping by for even the barest necessities. Robyn was upgrading to a mansion, and Kody authorized it all. The room gasped. The audience couldn't hold back. This was the same kind of betrayal people spoke about but never imagined they'd see in living color. For longtime viewers of Sister Wives, the favoritism toward Robyn had always been obvious. Fans saw how Kody spent more time at her house, how decisions always seemed to bend in her favor. But favoritism in love was one thing. Favoritism in finances was something entirely different. Meri demonstrated how it began small. They had made a long time ago. As a family, the agreement to combine their finances into one shared fund that would serve every need equally. It was a promise of their plural marriage. Everyone shared, and everyone benefited. But when Robyn entered the family, things changed. Meri sat up straight, her voice calm but authoritative. "Yeah, Your Honor. These records demonstrate that Robyn and Kody siphoned money intended for all of us. They enjoyed luxury while Christine, Janelle, and I scrounged to pay for things. This wasn't just a coincidence. And dustless precedence, it was a pattern, and these records demonstrate it." The judge's eyebrows arched. He nodded toward Kody, who suddenly seemed small in his chair. The man who had swaggered once with a self-assurance that bordered on arrogance, who growled at his wives as if they were order-taking drones, now seemed trapped. A ripple of gasps and whispers coursed through the courtroom. Reporters scribbled madly. Several spectators leaned forward, eyes wide. "Did you hear that? Fraud? She's accusing Robyn and Kody of stealing from them. Imagine all the years this was going on." The judge quieted the room with a single stern rap of his gavel. "Order?" He glanced back at the documents, flipping them over meticulously. Every page had a tale of betrayal. A paper trail leading not to familial needs, but to Robyn's bank accounts, her house, her way of life. Turning to face him, the judge finally spoke. "Mr. Brown, what can you say for yourself regarding these accusations? Do you deny that these transfers were initiated with your knowledge and consent?" Everyone looked at Kody. He leaned forward, his tone dripping with defiance. "Your Honor, this is being misrepresented. Everything that Robyn and I did was for the family. Those funds were intended to secure our future, to insulate us against financial insecurity. We didn't steal, we survived." His words sounded insincere. The judge touched one of the underlined lines with his pen. $80,000 deposited into an account titled Personal Savings. How was that ensuring the future of the family? Kody hesitated. That one was labeled incorrectly. It was temporary. We were going to. The judge interrupted him. "Mr. Brown, this court does not work in theoretical guarantees. This court works in reality. And the realities as they stand reveal systematic channeling of money into private accounts." Kody's face turned red. He slammed his hand on the table, startling even Robyn. "This is all Meri's revenge. She's bitter because she's no longer part of the family." Gasps returned to the courtroom again. But this time, no one was convinced by his tantrum. Robyn, normally steady and collected in public, started to disintegrate. She leaned forward into her lawyer, mumbling hysterically, her lips quivering. Her eyes flashed between the judge, the documents, and the crowd. When her lawyer finally got to his feet, his voice was belligerent. "Your Honor, we think that these records are being taken out of context. These accounts were never meant for personal expenses. Mrs. Brown is taking things out of context to wrongly accuse my client and Mr. Brown." But the judge didn't appear to be convinced. He waved a deed. This house was bought outright in Mrs. Robyn Brown's name. Money was withdrawn from what was to be a joint account. How do you account for that? The attorney paused. Robyn's face contorted. She grabbed a tissue and wiped at her eyes. But the fissures in her image were already apparent. For years fans had called her Kody's favorite, the wife who always seemed to come out ahead. But now, under the sterile glare of courtroom lights, she looked less like a favorite and more like a co-conspirator. The judge leaned back, folding his hands, his voice carrying the weight of finality. "What I am seeing before me, Mr. and Mrs. Brown, is not misinterpretation. It is a recurring pattern of dishonest conduct concerning money. It is not about grudges or family squabbles. It is about fairness, legality, and trust. And what I am seeing makes serious questions about your integrity and your conduct. The words crashed like thunder. Kody gritted his teeth, his fists clenching. Robyn dropped her head, weeping. Meri sat in silence, her face inscrutable. For once, she didn't have to say a word. The evidence spoke louder than words ever had. The quiet that followed was stifling. No one stirred, no one dared disrupt the silence as the judge scanned the last few pages. Finally he spoke. This court will have to explore further. But with the papers before us, I cannot help but take notice of the seriousness of what I observe. Mr. Brown, Mrs. Brown, be ready for serious legal repercussions. This is no longer a family affair. This is a matter of law. The gavel came down. The ring resounded through the room like gunfire. Kody slumped in his chair, his false bravado deflated. His shoulders hunched forward, his broad presence shrunk to nothing. Robyn wept softly, her face hidden behind her hands. Her attorney attempted to console her, but the harm was done. The courtroom had witnessed the papers. The judge had witnessed reality. And Meri, she remained motionless, eyes fixed on the judge's bench. She did not gloat, did not smirk. There was no need to. She had brought the truth with her into that courtroom, and the truth had spoken itself. For Sister Wives fans, the moment was nearly hallucinatory. For years they had seen Kody rule the family with every ounce of control, seen Robyn's power grow as Meri, Janelle, and Christine receded into the background. But here, in this court, everything was turned around. Kody's voice meant nothing. Robyn's tears evoked no sympathy. The judge was not moved by charm or apologies. The truth was power, and Meri had served it up. Before he adjourned, the judge gave one last warning, his tone firm and measured. Take notice. This court does not view lightly the abuse of funds or the breach of trust in a home. Mr. Brown, Mrs. Brown, you might think that you acted in the best interest of your home. But the papers tell another story. The law will determine, not emotion. Prepare yourselves. With that he stood and left the chamber. Behind him a courtroom humming with energy, incredulity, and expectation. As the viewers started to move out, the significance of what had transpired set in. Reporters mumbled of fraud allegations. Attorneys scribbled on papers. Even the bailiffs looked at each other, as if they knew they had just seen the breakdown of something far greater than a typical case. Kody would not even glance at Meri, his jaw clenched with anger. Robyn would not meet anyone's eye, her shoulders shaking. And Meri, she remained sitting for a little while longer, her hands neatly together in her lap, her face serene. When she did get up at last, she did so with quiet dignity, as if she understood this was merely the start of an infinitely larger storm. This was the point of no return, the time when suspicion became recognition, when whispers became legal warnings from a judge. The surprise wasn't in the documents. There was shock in the revelation that the entire dynamic of the Brown family had changed forever. Kody, the head of the household, was no longer the ruler of the roost. Robyn, the pet, was no longer invincible. And Meri, the overlooked wife, was no longer invisible. The judge's surprise wasn't his alone. It was the echo of surprise from fans, from the public, from everyone who had watched the Browns for decades. And it was followed by what came next. Repercussions, handcuffs, and the dissolution of everything Kody believed he had constructed. For all these years, Kody had been the boss, the decision maker, the self-appointed head of the Brown family. But in that courtroom, the dynamic shifted in full. When bailiffs approached him, the audience gasped. The jingling of the handcuffs was like a last nail in the coffin of his rule. Kody yelled, "You can't do this to me. I'm the provider. I built this family." But no one was listening anymore. For the first time, Kody wasn't in charge. He was the one who was being taken away. Robyn wept uncontrollably, covering her face as whispers circulated in the courtroom. Her carefully constructed image, the peacemaker, the loyal wife, was shattered. And all the while, Meri remained still, her hands clasped, her expression serene. After all those years of being silenced, shoved aside and treated like the forgotten wife, she had emerged to be the one who altered all that. The echo of the gavel was still ringing through the courtroom when the unthinkable occurred. The judge, his face unforgiving and stern, leaned forward and spoke the words that struck everyone into silence. Mr. Brown, due to the gravity of the evidence and the possibility of financial impropriety, this court has no alternative but to take you into custody for further inquiry. For a brief moment, the room became still. No one stirred. No one breathed. Then suddenly, gasps surged, cameras snapped, and whispers burst like wildfire. Kody's eyes widened in shock. His face turned white as the color drained from it before rage took hold. He sprang out of his chair, brandishing a shaking finger at the judge. You can't do this to me. You don't know who I am. I've built this family. I've supported them all. This is an error. A setup. But the judge didn't blink. He merely nodded to the bailiffs along the wall. The two officers in uniform advanced, their clomping boots ringing out on the high-polished floor. Seeing them, the crowd let out a new burst of muttering. The air was charged with tension, almost too much to bear. Kody stepped back, his palms raised in protest. No, this is not happening. You can't cuff me like some kind of criminal. I'm the patriarch of this family. I'm the one who gave up everything for them. His now desperate, hollow, pathetic words. The bailiffs approached him. One remained calm and ordered, "Sir, turn around and put your hands behind your back." Kody shook his head wildly, his blonde curls bobbing. "No, you don't get it. All of this is Meri's fault. She's jealous. She's bitter. This is payback." But the courtroom wasn't interested. Everybody had witnessed the evidence. Everybody had watched Meri stand in quiet dignity while he ranted and waved his arms. The bailiffs didn't waste any time. One of them clamped down on his arm, and the other seized his wrist. Kody struggled to get free, but fighting just made it more difficult. His arms were twisted behind his back in a matter of seconds and cold handcuffs snapped shut. The ring of metal on metal reverberated through the chamber, louder than his objections, louder than the whispers. It was the ring of power changing. The audience gasped once more. Some even clapped before the judge shut them down with his gavel. Journalists leaned across each other, taking photo after photo, capturing the once haughty patriarch forced to his knees. Robyn's shriek cut through the din. "No, don't take him. He hasn't done anything wrong." Her voice cracked, raw with fear. She grabbed her lawyer's arm, weeping into his shoulder as the officers secured the cuffs on Kody. But no one leaped to his defense. Not the judge. Not the attorneys. Not the onlookers. And far from it, Meri. Robyn got to her feet, her mascara smudged as she wept out. "He did it for us. For our kids. He's not a criminal. He's a father. A husband." But the voice of the judge interrupted her sobs. "Mrs. Brown. Enough. Sit down." The order was firm. Absolute. Robyn slumped back into her seat, her hands over her face, her shoulders trembling. Her carefully built image of control, of calmness, of being Kody's perfect partner, crumbled in real time for the world to see. As the bailiffs led him toward the front of the courtroom, Kody twisted his head back, his voice booming. "You'll regret this. All of you. This family is mine. I built it with my own hands. Without me, there is no family." His words lingered, but rather than inspiring fear, they inspired incredulity. Years of asserting leadership. And now his power stood so frail. A man hauled off in chains, holding on to something that was no longer there. Meri didn't blink. She looked at him with steady eyes, not victoriously, not tauntingly, but with the serenity of one who had finally told the truth, and allowed justice to run its course. As Kody wrestled, Meri sat impassive. She didn't smile, didn't jeer, didn't taunt. She just folded her hands in her lap, her expression blank. But within she felt that this was something greater than merely a legal milestone. It was symbolic. For years Kody had written her off, belittled her, treated her like she was no longer important. He flaunted his favoritism towards Robyn, keeping Meri in the background. And now, publicly, he was the one embarrassed. He was the one helpless. He was the one being discarded. The reversal was total. The clinking of those handcuffs wasn't merely metal. It was meaning. It was the clinking of the patriarch's control. Breaking for the first time, Kody wasn't in control. He wasn't the decision maker. He wasn't the order shouter. He was the silenced one. He was the instructed one. He was the one losing everything. The crowd sensed it. The reporters recorded it. And Meri personified it. Christine and Janelle were absent in body, but their names resonated within the murmur. Christine was always right, someone grumbled. Janelle knew the money wasn't equitable. A reporter hushed. This is the photo that'll appear on every front page tomorrow. Kody Brown in handcuffs. Even the bailiffs, professionally, shot each other a knowing glance, as if realizing they were part of history in the making. As the bailiffs escorted Kody down the aisle, his voice became raspy. Meri, you'll pay for this. You've ruined everything. Everything we established. Meri did not respond. She did not even glance his way. The judge slammed his gavel again. Get him out of this courtroom now. The big wooden doors swung open. The world beyond was waiting. Reporters, cameras, flashing lights. And for the first time, Kody Brown wasn't exiting as a proud patriarch of a polygamous family. He was walking out as a man in handcuffs. His reputation ruined. His image forever changed. Robyn collapsed into her chair, crying uncontrollably. She grasped for her lawyer again, pleading with him to fix this. But there was nothing to fix. The evidence existed. The judge had spoken. Kody was gone. For years she had been the favorite, the one shielded at any cost. But now, with her husband in shackles, she was defenseless. Exposed, helpless. Meri sat in silence through it all. Hands clasped. She didn't gloat. But her silence then held power. She had been dismissed as the overlooked wife. Set aside, discarded. But it was her bravery, her testimony, her truth that brought it all tumbling down. The change was undeniable. She was no longer the weak one. She was the one who ended Kody's reign. As the courtroom doors clapped behind Kody and the click of the handcuffs dissipated, the courtroom seemed different. This was not about money anymore. It was not about favoritism. It was not even about the Browns. It was about the fall of an illusion. The illusion of control, of cohesion, of a patriarch who had it all together. The truth had finally caught up, and it arrived in the guise of steel handcuffs and a public downfall. Kody quote's downfall wasn't subdued. It was loud. A mess, humiliating. But that was the idea. The man who once insisted on obedience was himself hauled off in chains. The wife he once dismissed had shut him up with proof. The judge who once had no interest in the Browns now had Kody's future in his hands. For viewers, it was the moment they never imagined would come. The sight of Kody Brown in handcuffs wasn't merely surprising. It was history. And for Meri, it was justice. Because sometimes the biggest fall does not come without warning. Sometimes it occurs in public. And when it does, the clang of handcuffs is louder than 1,000 arguments. Outside the courthouse, the news took fire. Reporters mobbed, cameras snapped, and headlines burst on social media. Kody Brown in handcuffs. Meri exposes Robyn with secret files. Sister wives scandal rocks courtroom. Christine and Janelle, while not actually involved in the case, soon were included in the discussion. Christine said she wasn't surprised. Janelle acknowledged that she had long suspected something was amiss with the money, but never had evidence. For fans, it was vindication. The favoritism that they had witnessed on screen was no longer speculation. It was revealed as fact. But for Meri, this wasn't vindication. It was about survival. She told the press, "I stayed silent for years. I thought loyalty meant protecting the family, even when it hurt me. But the truth is, silence only protected the ones doing wrong." Her words stung hard, not only for the Browns, but for anyone who had been keeping tabs on their saga. The courtroom doors closed behind Kody Brown. But the tale was only just getting started. The moment those heavy oak doors swung open, the world outside burst loose. Photographers, reporters, and fans jammed the courthouse steps, snapping their cameras like firecrackers. Kody, his wrists cuffed in chilly steel, was propelled forward by bailiffs. His proud stride was lost, replaced by the bent-over stance of a man trapped, compromised, and embarrassed. This wasn't another scandal. This was the downfall of a patriarch who had lived his life on controlling everyone and everything. And now he was being paraded handcuffed to the world. Mr. Brown. Kody, do you have anything to say regarding the allegations of fraud? Robyn, did you know about the secret accounts? Meri, why now? Why say it today? Questions went flying in all directions. Reporters pushing microphones and cameras at anyone they could catch. The media could smell blood, and the Brown family was the largest story of the week. News vans lined the street. Headlines were already making it to social media in real time. Kody Brown arrested in courtroom bombshell. Robyn exposed in financial scandal. Meri Brown turns whistleblower in shocking sister wives twist. Videos of Kody yelling at the judge and being handcuffed were trending in minutes. Sister Wives fans, who watched the show for more than a decade, couldn't believe their eyes. The man who spent years presenting himself as the tough, self-assured head of a plural family is now trending globally, not for his ideology, but for his supposed crimes. With the video going viral, Kody Brown was the first to comment. She took to Instagram. Her message brief but pointed: "The truth always comes out. It may take time, but it always does." Fans overwhelmed her comments section with support, thanking her for leaving the family years ago. Several of them noted that Kody had cautioned everyone about Kody's favoritism, about how Robyn always got to live comfortably, while the rest of the wives and children struggled. Janelle, who was always more level-headed, gave a statement through a reporter. "I had suspicions for a long time about where the money was going, but I never had the evidence Meri presented today. I'm glad the truth is finally being told." Her words were heavy, not bitter, not vindictive, but adamant. It was the validation fans had been anticipating. The bias wasn't emotional. It was monetary. Back in the courthouse, Robyn sat long after Kody was led away. Her attorney whispered desperately, telling her to exit through a side door to escape the commotion outside. But Robyn was stuck. Her flawless persona, the serene, gentle wife who Kody loved more than all the others combined, had shattered wide open. With mascara smeared, trembling hands, and a face contorted with terror, she appeared a woman who'd lost everything in one afternoon. For years, fans accused her of manipulating Kody, of taking over the family's resources, of isolating him from his other wives. Now, with Meri's files exposed, those accusations seemed more credible than ever. When she finally stood, she staggered, almost falling into her lawyer's arms. He led her out a side door, away from the cameras. But it was too late. The damage was done. The world had witnessed her collapse. Robyn didn't flee like Meri did. When she emerged from the courthouse, she was instantly surrounded. Microphones in her face, cameras blindingly bright, she had to squint. "Why did you finally come forward? Do you feel vindicated? Are you glad to see Kody with handcuffs on?" Meri paused on the courthouse steps, raised her chin and replied calmly, "This was never about revenge. This was about the truth. The truth has been kept hidden for way too long, and I couldn't remain silent anymore. That's all I have to say." She turned and walked away, refusing to feed the frenzy. And that simple act, her calm silence against the chaos, made her a hero to many fans. For over a decade, the Browns presented themselves as pioneers of plural marriage, insisting that their family was built on love, faith, and unity. They opened their homes to cameras, shared their struggles, and invited millions of viewers into their lives. But now, outside a courthouse with stories blaring of fraud, betrayal, and arrest, that picture was in shambles. What had appeared to be a daring, doting family was now broken, manipulative, and tainted with greed. The illusion was deflated. On Twitter, on TikTok, and on Reddit, fans went wild. Memes abounded, images of Kody handcuffed with captions such as "Karma's favorite wife is justice," and "Kody finally got cuffed, but not by Robyn." Some longtime viewers felt heartache. "I sat through years of this family hoping they'd show that love could endure. This is heartbreaking." Others rejoiced. At last, the silenced wives at last had their day. Meri is the MVP. YouTubers and podcasters who documented sister wives scrambled to put out crisis episodes. Analysts broke down each shot of courtroom video, each sentence Meri uttered, each sob Robyn cried. The Browns weren't reality TV personalities anymore. They were the focus of a national controversy. On Twitter, TikTok, and Reddit, supporters imploded. Memes took over the internet. Photos of Kody in handcuffs with one-liners such as "Karma's favorite wife is justice," and "Kody finally got cuffed, but not by Robyn." Some die-hard fans were distraught. "I watched this family for years hoping they would demonstrate love could endure. This is heartbreaking." Others cheered. At last, the silenced wives at last got their voices heard. Meri is the actual MVP. YouTubers and podcasters who had been reporting on sister wives scrambled to create emergency episodes. Analysts picked apart each angle of court footage, each sentence Meri uttered, each tear Robyn cried. The Browns were no longer reality TV personalities. They were the hub of a national scandal. As the world rummaged, Kody spent his first night in a holding cell. The man who had once resided in sprawling mansions with multiple wives now occupied a narrow bed, the cold concrete walls bearing down. To a man consumed with control, freedom lost was intolerable. He yelled at guards, insisted on respect, but received none. To the law, he was not a patriarch. He wasn't special. He was an inmate like any other. And maybe that was the worst blow of all. With the scandal building, scrutiny fell on the Brown children. How would they handle the shame of watching their father in handcuffs on the national news? Some of the older kids reportedly stood with Meri, maintaining that she did the right thing. Others were conflicted, caught between loyalty to their dad and the ugly reality of the facts. The younger children, particularly Robyn's, were protected as much as could be. But where social media reigns, nothing remains secret. They would grow up with the knowledge the world had witnessed their father's downfall. Even weeks afterward, fans couldn't erase the picture of the judge leaning forward, his voice stern and relentless. "Mr. Brown, this court takes these matters very seriously." That line became a rallying cry on the internet. It represented accountability, not only for Kody, but for years of favoritism, manipulation, and betrayal that fans felt had tainted the Brown family. By the end of the week, it was plain the Browns' legacy was done. The program that started out as an optimistic gaze upon plural marriage had devolved into a parable of power, greed, and lies. The patriarch was in jail. His favorite wife was drowning in scandal. The wives he cast aside were now the voices of truth. And at the middle of it all was Meri, once the unobtrusive, overlooked wife, now the whistleblower who destroyed it all. The backlash wasn't merely legal. It was emotional. It was cultural. It was personal. The Brown saga had always been larger than life. But this installment was something no one could have written. Kody handcuffed. Robyn shattered. Meri triumphant. Christine and Janelle vindicated. The family who once welcomed America into their bedrooms now stood as a testament to the fact that secrets don't remain buried forever. And as the cameras continued to play the footage repeatedly, one thing was for sure: the world would never see the Browns in the same light again. With the dust settling, the Brown family was forever changed. Kody was embroiled in legal battles that would take years to resolve. Robyn's reputation lay in shambles, her favorite wife status replaced by mastermind of the scheme. And Meri? She stood taller than ever. No longer the reserved first wife relegated to the sidelines. She was now the woman who had brought it all to light. Sister Wives was for years a show about one family attempting to establish that plural marriage could be made to work, that love and togetherness could overcome jealousy and fragmentation. But now the narrative had reversed itself. It wasn't about togetherness anymore. It was about betrayal, justice, and the strength of the truth. The photo of Kody in handcuffs, Robyn with her hands over her face, and Meri standing calmly, holding the folder became emblematic. Emblematic of the end of the Brown family we knew. Emblematic of the fissures that had been present all along. And most of all, indicative of the fact that no matter how well you attempt to keep the truth concealed, it always manages to escape. The dust had hardly begun to settle. But one thing was certain: the Browns would never be the same. The family who had won millions of viewers for their tale of love, faith, and unity were now at the center of one of the largest reality TV scandals ever. And while the courtroom theatrics had come to a close for the day, the Browns' legacy had only just started to unravel. Kody Brown had constructed his whole identity on being the patriarch, the guy who guided his wives and kids with authority, confidence, and at least in his own mind, divine purpose. For more than a decade, viewers watched him exert power over everything from where the family resided to how the finances were spent. But now, it was all stripped away. The photo of Kody in handcuffs, his face crimson with rage as bailiffs led him out of the courtroom, replaced every recollection of him sitting smugly in confessionals, discussing the principle of polygamy. For his detractors, it was poetic justice. For his fans, it was tragic. But for all, it was unforgettable. The patriarch was no longer above criticism. He was human, imperfect, fractured, and vulnerable. For years, Robyn had been the favorite wife, the one who had received the largest home, the most attention. The fans had accused her of playing Kody, of using her power to marginalize Christine, Janelle, and even Meri. But in one day that facade was destroyed. No tears would ever wipe out the proof Meri presented. No nervous denials would conceal the fact that the judge himself had regarded her suspiciously. Robyn was no longer the beloved queen. She was a woman in the ruins, her reputation marred, her skillfully built image shattered. And while Kody faced handcuffs, Robyn faced something just as devastating: isolation. For the first time, the other wives weren't looking at her with jealousy. They were looking at her with vindication. Meri's transformation was perhaps the most remarkable of all. For years she was the quiet one, the sidelined wife, the woman whose marriage to Kody had become a shadow of what it once was. Fans often pitied her, wondering why she stayed, why she tolerated being ignored, why she seemed so small in a family that once revolved around her. But that day in court changed everything. Meri wasn't the forgotten wife any longer. She was the whistleblower, the truth teller, the woman who finally mustered the strength to bet everything on coming forward. As she emerged from the courthouse and squarely met the cameras, refusing to smirk, refusing to berate, she rewrote her entire history. She was no longer a victim. She was a survivor. She was a fighter. And in a number of ways, she was the one who finally provided Christine and Janelle with the validation they had waited years to receive. Although Christine and Janelle were not physically present in that courtroom, their presence did loom large. For years, Christine had long complained about how Robyn's arrival, and Kody's fixation on her, upset the dynamics of the family. She had been the first one to go. The first one to stand up and declare, "I deserve better." And now, the whole world was seeing her vindication unfold in real time. Janelle, level-headed and calm, had questioned the family finances for a long time but never had the evidence. Now, courtesy of Meri, the evidence was absolute. For both the women, the scandal wasn't merely about the demise of Kody, it was about their independence. They had left with their heads held high. They had opted for serenity, not bedlam, and they were being vindicated. Now, while the vindication of the wives was strong, the repercussions were more complicated for the Brown children. The older children had long complained about their father's favoritism and neglect. Most of them had drifted away, opting for independence rather than loyalty. For them, the sight of Kody in handcuffs was tantamount to a verification of what they had sensed for years, that their father's universe was founded on unstable foundations. But for the younger children, particularly Robyn's, the scandal was horrific. Their dad was no longer a reality TV star. He was a suspected criminal. Their mom's good wife status had been destroyed. How would they get teased by their classmates? How would they defend the headlines, the memes, the never-ending social media chatter? The fallout did not just concern Kody and Robyn, it concerned a generation of children who had to live through the rubble of their parents' decisions. For TLC, the scandal was a nightmare, and a treasure trove. On the one side, the network faced the legal mess, the negative publicity, and the moral dilemma of going on filming a family in scandal. On the other side, the ratings potential was enormous. Would Sister Wives be cancelled, or would it double down, making the courtroom soap opera the most-watched season so far? Fans were speculating wildly. Some demanded that the show was over, too sullied, too destroyed. Others claimed the scandal resurrected it, turning the family docu-series into a true crime epic. Either way, this much was clear. The Browns' tale was far from over. Where the courtroom drama ends and the cameras stop rolling, and the scandal fades, something deeper concluded that day. For years, the Browns had represented plural marriage in America. They had maintained it was about love, about choice, about family. They had stood up to critics, positioned it as a calling of the spirit. But today, the family that had previously professed to be constructed on faith and trust was branded with betrayal and fraud. The facade was destroyed not only for the Browns, but for the whole picture of their lifestyle. And though plural marriage would persist for others, the Browns' narrative had been rewritten in perpetuity. They were not longer trailblazers. They were a warning. Around the world, fans, critics, and general viewers opined. Some grieved. I really believed in them once. This hurts. Others gloated. Karma finally came for Kody and Robyn, and too many others simply couldn't turn away. The scandal contained all the elements of a cultural touchstone: betrayal, secrets, power, collapse, and redemption. The Browns were not reality TV personalities anymore. They were a symbol of how corruption of power does happen, of how favoritism kills, and of how secrets do blow up eventually. Kody's legal fight was only just starting. His future was unsure, his liberty pending on a thread. Robyn had investigations of her own, her reputation in shambles. Meri, Christine, and Janelle, though, had another destiny. For the first time in years, they weren't in Kody's shadow. They were free to tell their own stories, free to stand independently, free to live without being silenced. And maybe that was the real legacy of the scandal. Not solely Kody's fall, not solely Robyn's failure, but the ascension of the women who had been dismissed, overlooked, and undervalued. The Browns' story started as one of religion and family, and it concluded in handcuffs, scandal, and betrayal. But in that conclusion was a renewal. Not for Kody, not for Robyn, but for Meri, Christine, and Janelle. Because sometimes the end of one tale is the beginning of another. And while the world keeps watching, one truth becomes evident: the Browns will never be the same. But the women who defied, they are just beginning. Ultimately, this was more than a courtroom drama. It was the unraveling of an empire constructed upon half-truths and nepotism. Meri's decision to expose Robyn and Kody wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming her voice, after years of silence. It was about showing Christine, Janelle, and even the children that standing up to manipulation is possible, even when the odds are against you. To the judge, it was obvious Robyn and Kody had trespassed boundaries that went far beyond family conflicts. And to fans, it was validation of what they'd long suspected. Favoritism wasn't just emotional, it was monetary. The courthouse moment was more than a courtroom turn, it was a cultural one. Millions who had watched Sister Wives for more than a decade now viewed the family, not as an example of plural marriage, but as a warning about what can occur when control, secrecy, and favoritism operate with no checks. And as Meri stepped out of that courthouse, leaving behind the wreckage, she bore with her something stronger than revenge: freedom. Because in the end, the Meri and Robyn and Kody story isn't about them alone. It's about everyone who's ever been quieted, everyone who's ever been belittled. It's evidence that when you finally do stand up and tell the truth doesn't only liberate you, it can ripple through the world.